Hey everyone, long-time lurker, first-time poster. I never thought I'd be the guy typing something like this, but here we are. My wife L30 for F and I 36 meters have been together for almost 9 years, married for 6. And honestly, I thought things were fine. Not perfect, but stable. We ate our routines, our dumb inside jokes, our shared grocery list that never seemed to get shorter. Looking back now, I can see the cracks forming way before anything big happened. Little things at first. She started spending more time working late, even though her job has been remote since 2020. She got super protective of her phone, like clutching it to her chest if I walked behind her, which she dismissed as habit. And her tone toward me started shifting sharper, more impatient. Like everything I did annoyed her on a cellular level. I chalked it up to stress, burnout, maybe hormones, whatever. I wasn't seeing the full picture yet. I was just a guy trying to keep things calm, totally unaware I was standing on a landmine. The real shift started about 3 months ago. Elle suddenly got really into self-care nights, which basically meant locking herself in the bedroom with candles, music, and her phone for hours. I figured she deserved the downtime shed. Been complaining about feeling overwhelmed, so I didn't question it. But then she started getting dressed up just to run errands. Full makeup, perfume I hadn't smelled on her in years, and outfits that looked more first date than Target run. When I joked about it lightly, she snapped at me, said I was being controlling, and stormed out. That was the first time I felt something cold settle in my stomach, like I was missing something obvious, but I kept trying to convince myself it was nothing. People change, right? We'd been together almost a decade. Maybe she was trying to feel good about herself again. The turning point, though, was when she suddenly changed all her phone passwords. She acted like it was no big deal, said her account got hacked and she had to reset everything. But she wouldn't even give me the new Netflix password. Netflix. It felt weird, but I told myself I was overthinking. I didn't want to be that paranoid husband. I had no idea what storm was coming. Okay, so here's where the universe just slapped me in the face. Last Friday, I was home early because my boss canceled the meeting. I was grabbing a snack in the kitchen when I heard her laugh, that laugh coming from her laptop in the bedroom. I thought she was on a call with her friend, but the timing was weird. I peeked over her shoulder, and what I saw made my stomach drop. There it was, a flirty conversation on a messaging app I hadn't even realized she used. Not subtle, either. She was all caps happy about meeting someone that night, sending emojis, planning things she should have been telling me. I felt like I'd been kicked in the chest. I closed the laptop, tried to calm down. Part of me wanted to ignore it, pretend I didn't see it. But another part of me, probably the part that still loved her, was screaming that I needed answers. I spent the next hour replaying every weird behavior, every late night, every little lie about errands or work calls. And that's when I realized I'd been blind. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept replaying what I saw, imagining the worst. My mind doing that loop where every memory suddenly makes sense in hindsight. By the next morning, I decided I couldn't wait. I had to confront her. I found her in the kitchen, sipping coffee like nothing had happened. My heart was hammering, my hands were shaking, but I forced myself to speak clearly. Elle, we need to talk now. She immediately got defensive. What are you talking about? She asked, rolling her eyes like I was the crazy one. I held up her laptop. This you. Who is he? Her face went through this weird combination of guilt and irritation. First, she said, oh, that? It's nothing. Just a friend. You're overreacting. Then, when I pressed, she added, okay, fine, maybe we've been flirting, but it's not serious. Stop being dramatic. I couldn't believe it. Not only was she cheating, she was gaslighting me right in front of my face, calling me dramatic. The confrontation didn't get any easier. I tried to stay calm, asking for details, dates, how long, why, but every answer was either a half-truth or a straight-up lie. She claimed it was just emotional, that it didn't mean anything, and even said, you've been distant lately anyway. Maybe this is on you too. At one point, she started yelling, pacing around the living room, calling me controlling and paranoid. I can't believe you don't trust me after all these years, she said, tears in her eyes, which I later realized were more like performance tears than real ones. I tried to tell her how much it hurt, how betrayed I felt. She responded with sarcasm. "Oh, poor baby. Boo-hoo. I'm sorry you feel that way, but I'm not going to stop living my life because you're insecure." Every word she said was a punch in the gut. I wanted her to admit the truth, to show some remorse, but all I got were excuses, blame shifting, and that same bitchy defensiveness that had been growing for months. After that confrontation, I felt like I was on an emotional roller coaster I didn't sign up for. One second, I was boiling with rage, picturing every secret meeting, every lie. The next, I was numb, staring at the ceiling, feeling like I'd lost a part of myself I'd never get back. She kept acting like nothing was wrong, flipping between indifference and fake tears. She even tried to charm me back later that night, sitting next to me on the couch, pretending everything was fine. I remember her saying, "Come on, don't be so dramatic. We can just move past it, right?" As if weeks of lies could be erased with a cozy hug. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and every notification on my phone made my stomach twist. Even the thought of her laughing with him was unbearable. I felt paranoid, angry, sad, and humiliated all at once, like my life had split in two, and I didn't recognize either half. It was exhausting. I couldn't just let it go. I needed to know the full extent of what was happening, even though part of me was terrified of the answers. Over the next few days, I started piecing things together: texts she accidentally left on her phone, receipts from dinners I didn't know about, even photos on her cloud account that didn't include me. Each discovery hit like a sledgehammer. There was one night in particular that crushed me. She had gone to a hotel with him, and she lied about attending a work event. I confronted her with the evidence, expecting at least a flicker of honesty. But no, she denied it at first. Then when I pushed harder, she said, "Okay, fine. But it wasn't a big deal. Stop acting like I killed someone." Her ability to lie, to twist the story, and to make me doubt myself while holding the truth, it was insane. I felt trapped in a loop of betrayal and gaslighting, wondering if I'd ever actually know the truth. By the end of that week, I hit my breaking point. I couldn't look at her without seeing the lies in her eyes. Even casual conversations felt toxic because I was constantly analyzing every word, every expression, every little twitch. I realized I was no longer married to the woman I thought I knew. I was married to someone I didn't recognize at all. One night, I exploded. I shouted everything I'd been holding in for weeks. The late nights, the secret texts, the lies, the constant manipulations. I told her I felt betrayed, worthless, and humiliated. She just stood there, rolling her eyes, muttering, "You're impossible. I can't deal with this right now." It was surreal. The woman I had loved for years, someone I had shared a life with, could look at me and treat my heartbreak like an inconvenience. That's when I realized that her actions weren't just a mistake. They were a reflection of who she had become. After that night, I basically stopped talking to her except for the bare minimum. I couldn't pretend anymore. Every time I saw her laughing or scrolling her phone, I felt the sharp pang of jealousy and sadness. Sleep was impossible. I kept replaying every moment we'd shared, wondering which ones were real and which ones were lies. I also started noticing little things I had ignored before. How she would smirk when I mentioned him, how she seemed to relish in keeping me in suspense. It was like a knife twisting in my gut every day. My friends tried to give advice, but until you experience this kind of betrayal, you can't fully understand it. I went through waves of emotions: anger, grief, numbness, disbelief, and then back to anger again. It felt endless, like being trapped in a storm with no shelter. I had no idea how to function normally anymore. I finally told her I needed to separate. I packed a bag and stayed with a friend for a few nights just to get some distance. When I told her, she tried every trick in the book: guilt trips, fake apologies, tears, and even even threats about how messy it would get if I left. She was dramatic, manipulative, and relentless, but I stayed firm. It hurt like hell. I still loved her in some way, despite everything. But loving her wasn't enough to stay in a marriage where trust had been destroyed. I realized that sometimes love isn't the point, it's self-preservation and knowing when to step away. Walking out the door that night, bag in hand, my heart felt like it was shattering into pieces. But at the same time, a small part of me felt alive again, like I had taken the first real step toward reclaiming my life. I finally told her I needed to separate. I packed a bag and stayed with a friend for a few nights just to get some distance. When I told her, she tried every trick in the book. Guilt trips, fake apologies, tears, and even threats about how messy it would get if I left. She was dramatic, manipulative, and relentless, but I stayed firm. It hurt like hell. I still loved her in some way, despite everything. But loving her wasn't enough to stay in a marriage where trust had been destroyed. I realized that sometimes love isn't the point, it's self-preservation and knowing when to step away. Walking out the door that night, bag in hand, my heart felt like it was shattering into pieces. But at the same time, a small part of me felt alive again, like I had taken the first real step toward reclaiming my life. The first few weeks after leaving were brutal. I cried more than I ever thought possible. I went through phases of rage, depression, and disbelief. I kept thinking, how could someone I loved so much betray me like this? Every little reminder of her favorite mug, a song, even a text from a mutual friend felt like salt in the wound. But slowly, I started to reclaim myself. I went on long walks, reconnected with friends I'd neglected, and allowed myself to feel everything instead of bottling it up. I journaled, I vented, I screamed into my pillow when I needed to. It was messy and it hurt, but it was necessary. I realized that heartbreak isn't linear. Some days I felt like I'd never get over it, other days I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could survive and rebuild. And that small flicker of hope became my lifeline. After a couple of months, I started to see the silver lining, painful as it was. I rediscovered hobbies I had abandoned, spent more time with friends, and focused on my mental and physical health. I even started dating again, cautiously learning how to trust myself before trusting anyone else. I also reflected a lot on the marriage. I realized that I had ignored warning signs, excused her behavior, and put her feelings above my own for far too long. I learned that love isn't supposed to feel like constant fear and suspicion. Healthy relationships are built on trust, respect, and honesty, not manipulation, lies, and betrayal. It hurt like hell, but it also taught me resilience and the importance of boundaries. I finally felt like I was reclaiming not just my life, but my self-respect. Looking back, the biggest lesson I've learned is that you can't change someone who doesn't want to be changed. I spent years hoping she would be faithful, loving, and honest, but she wasn't capable, and no amount of hoping or pleading would fix that. I also learned to trust my instincts. Those little gut feelings, those uneasy moments I dismissed early on, they were warnings. And I realized that self-respect sometimes means walking away, even when it breaks your heart. Finally, I learned that healing takes time. There's no magic moment when the pain disappears. It fades slowly, like a scar that reminds you where you've been but doesn't stop you from moving forward. Looking back, the biggest lesson I've learned is that you can't change someone who doesn't want to be changed. I spent years hoping she would be faithful, loving, and honest, but she wasn't capable, and no amount of hoping or pleading would fix that. I also learned to trust my instincts. Those little gut feelings, those uneasy moments I dismissed early on, they were warnings. And I realized that self-respect sometimes means walking away, even when it breaks your heart. Finally, I learned that healing takes time. There's no magic moment when the pain disappears. It fades slowly, like a scar that reminds you where you've been but doesn't stop you from moving forward.